Welcome back to Seasons, the devotional based on my book. And we've been on a long and winding road, and that's the truth because we're 80% through the book. And the title of the chapter in the book is The Long and Winding Road. I accompanied a very good friend as she traveled to her mother's interment in a cemetery that was about a 2-hour drive away from our city. And this was right after her mom's memorial service. Relatives who lived close by the cemetery, at least they said they lived close by the cemetery, invited us to join them for a quick cup of coffee after the service. Our host reassured us that he would lead us to his new home and that we would be able to get to where we were going quite easily from where he lived. We agreed to follow him, but within 2 minutes, this crazy Albertan, used to the back roads of his little community, was so far ahead of us that we could barely see his truck. After about 20 minutes, I began to think this side trip was not such a good idea. I was concerned for my friend. She was exhausted and she was the one behind the wheel. We had had a little bit of car issues on the way down, and I know that was pressing on her mind, and she was also missing her mother. The road wound around hilly farmland, and we could only catch a glimpse occasionally of our guide every time that he slowed down to indicate which way we should turn. We soon realized, however, that without him, we would be lost. As the sky had become thick with clouds, we couldn't even gauge what direction the highway was by where the sun was, and so we were really dependent on where he was going to lead us. Even if we decided to go try to find our own way home, we would have been lost. Gradually, however, the farmland began to make way for a small industrial park, and soon there were a few homes, and soon we realized our guide had indeed led us well. Our host lived in a small town just off the main highway, and we knew where to get home off that highway. By taking the back roads, we had avoided rush hour traffic, and we had that extra time to visit with my friend's family before we had to get on the road for that long stretch home. God often reminds me of that story when I am feeling fretful and wondering if I am being led at all or whether I'm just on a wild goose chase. He further reminds me that he's a good guide, unlike my friend's nephew who really kept us guessing if we were going in the right place at all. There were a lot of places we could have turned off on the way, but we just kept on going, hoping that we would see that truck. When the road becomes confusing in my life, I cannot rely on my sense of spiritual direction at all. When anxiety rises because I don't know where I'm going, the enemy whispers in my ear that it would be wiser for me to do my own navigating. But God asked me to trust his guidance. Unlike my crazy guide that day, God patiently waits for me to catch up to him. And he promises me that even though I may not be able to see him, as long as I stay on the road until he indicates it's time for me to turn, I'll be safe. However, when I can't see beyond that bend, that's where faith comes into. God asked me to surrender my GPS or my road map to him. God has never led me astray, although GPS has. Here's a couple of verses for you to think about. Proverbs 16, verse 9. The heart of man plans his way, but the Lord establishes his steps. I think that should be included in a sticky note on every GPS device. Proverbs 3, verse 5 and 6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make your paths straight. It's not easy to relinquish control, especially when you're feeling anxious because you don't know where you're going. But that's at the precise time that we need to do that. God doesn't need back seat drivers, and he doesn't need front seat drivers, and he doesn't need us asking him constantly, are you sure that this is the right way to go? But God still has so much patience and grace for us that even when we are being overly anxious and trying to take control of the situation, he has the patience to wait for us to catch up after we realize that we can't get anywhere on our own strength.